So we are in my garage and we have the Explorer up in the air, and we are going to do an install today of the thermal R&D 3-inch exhaust system on a 2020 Explorer ST. So I wanted to use this opportunity, since we have the car up and I'm working on taking the exhaust off right now to prepare for the new exhaust. I want to take this opportunity to go ahead and go through what's going to come with your thermal shipments and what's going to be in each box. You're going to get box 1, which is going to be a long box. Go through that. That's going to be your mid-pipe sections, as well as all of your clamps and connectors in that box. So the second box, which is going to be box number 2, exhaust tips. And then you also have all of these other kind of connecting pieces. I believe what is underneath here is another kind of like a muffler, kind of like a resonator. It makes their Helmholtz system. This is one of their patented technologies. So there's a lot of components here. So you'll want to make sure as soon as you get these boxes, you open them up, go through inventory, what's in each box, make sure you have everything you need to proceed with your install. Okay, so now we're gonna head on under and I'll show everyone what's going on underneath the car. Some uninstall progress happening here. All dripping with, I think WD-40 is what we put on here just to get everything loosened up so we can take it apart. The old Corsa exhaust is completely off the car. I just pulled it out in almost one entire piece, which is pretty neat.
This section isn't required, but if you want some free tips and tricks, just follow along. It'll show you where your exhaust hangers are, as well as how some of these pieces fit together.
So I'm just gonna go over quick what is all here. So we have different sections of mid-pipe, more sections of mid-pipe, connectors and clamps, the mid-muffler, and then also the resonators or mufflers. Go ahead and we're gonna jump under the Explorer and take a look. Put a little light on the subject. I know, I'm so funny. Okay, so if you don't know this already, now you know. You have hangers with rubber bushings at both sides of the outlet of the exhaust. You have hangers with these drop down bushings here. Then you also have no hangers again until you get to these weirdo midsection where that big muffler, the one centerpiece one, sits. The next step is going to be to go ahead and start reassembling the system.
From here, I'm basically just rambling about what I'm doing next, which I'm going to explain in this clip anyways.
Again, we're going to take these clamps out, see where they go.
So you're going to end up with 3 different size clamps in this kit. You're going to have a 2.5-inch clamp that goes between the downpipe and the midpipe, and then you're going to have a 3-inch clamp that goes on the exhaust tips themselves at the very end. Then you're going to have an additional 6 locking collars that will slide over the joining point between every other piece of the system. So those are going to be the bulk of what you're installing and what's being used to hold your exhaust system together. The final thing I noticed is that half of the items that come in the kits are packaged in pink wrap and the other half are packaged in clear wrap. Everything that goes on the passenger side of the vehicle was wrapped in pink, and everything that goes on the driver's side was wrapped in clear. So passenger pink, driver clear.
Okay, so I went ahead and I set my stuff kind of in the general vicinity, which I would need it. Handy dandy 15 mil. It's Pittsburgh Harvey special. Okay. Also, just so everyone knows, I never thought I would record myself just rambling, but here we are.
Okay, so you'll see that I have already slid the clamp over the downpipe, ready to be tightened before installing this pipe.
So basically what I'm doing is just wiggling this on in place, this mid-pipe.
So So you'll continue wiggling and just getting this set in place, and the procedure is exactly the same for the other side.
I'm just gently placing this where it belongs so that I can still adjust as needed and push and pull. I'm not going to tighten this, but I'm just setting it in place.
Again, I'm going to take this locking collar and slide it over the pipe before adjoining it to the next piece of the exhaust system.
Just one thing to note is, like, when you're putting these on, put them in a way that you can reach the 15 mil side that you can adjust. That's just my personal preference, is not fighting with stuff if I don't have to. Okay. Again, I'll try and put this. And it slides right on. Like, you can't ask for much more than this. All right. Next, I don't know what I did with the, oh. I put the collar all the way on the other side. Well, good news is I have an extra one sitting right here. And because this one's going to be facing this, oh, that would be stupid, wouldn't it?
Okay, so the main point here is make sure when you're putting these locking collars on that you're paying attention to the way that they line up right next to each other, because ideally you're going to have to get something in there to tighten them, and you want to be able to take them out one day, maybe. So just pay attention when you're installing those collars.
Do I have a mid-muffler to put in here? This is my husband's assistant. I'm normally his assistant. Thank you so handsomely. So, perfect. You can just mount those right into the mid-pipe. Okay, just kidding. So, now we install these like so.
So I'm going to save you from this. Basically, you're just going to have to finagle this into the bushings for a couple of minutes and get it readjusted a couple of times, and then maybe it'll fall on you, maybe it won't, but you are going to want to have something to hold it up for when you go to the next section once you finally get it all sorted. Again, just readjusting.
What am I doing wrong? That is not it. Okay, so I did something wrong. Obviously. What did I do wrong?
So if you get to this point, you probably didn't do anything wrong. It's just that the pipes aren't lining up correctly, so you just have to continue to readjust.
So once you have these like sleeves pulled over where the two pipes meet, just pull them all the way like so that they're secured, and then you can just literally pull this right into its little hanger.
At this point, you're going to want to have something to rest that mid-muffler on while you go through and tighten up those collars just a little bit. And now we move on to the final component, which is the last muffler before the actual exhaust tips.
Primary objective at present.
Your goal here is to get the exhaust hanger into the bushing completely and through to the other side so that it's securely fastened and hanging at the appropriate angle. Okay, once you have the hanger in the bushing, you can go ahead and slide the locking collar over the joining point of those two pipes. You're going to want to fasten that at least lightly so that it's not moving around a whole bunch when you move to the other side.
Okay. Wow. This is so fancy. Okay, I need to like start tightening shit or else I'm gonna end up with like a serious problem.
So to avoid the serious problem, here I go with the impact wrench, and I'm just gonna go through and tighten things up.
Okay, tighten up for now. We no longer need this guy, this guy. We're set for where we're at. Okay, next step is, I think, the final step. We're almost the final step, one or the other. Again, with these guys, pre-positioning them.
And from here, I'm just going to finish adjusting those collars, get the remaining pieces of the exhaust to put on, and then I will kind of go back and forth a little bit with these mufflers, getting them lined up just right, and then getting the exhaust tips put on is going to be a whole nother process that happens in just a couple seconds. A lot of what you're seeing me do right now is things that I have already done in this video where I'm reinstalling some of the parts. A lot of this has to do with the exhaust system lining up correctly and the collars sliding over the correct joining locations and being tightened completely. So some of these I'm pulling the collars or the clamps back off and then putting them back on, making sure that they are tight as they can be. And in other cases, I am just tightening them for the first time. So a lot of this is kind of based on feel as you're going through the system and you're installing. Leave it loose enough that you can adjust, but also keep it tight enough that it's not going to fall apart on top of you.
Okay, so now what we have is basically an installed exhaust, and I think that took me, it took me less than an hour. The hardest part was honestly the takeoff. All right, BRB.
Okay, we have finally reached the end where we are going to put on the tips. So the important thing here is a 16 mil socket or wrench or both. And then also go ahead and use the 3-inch clamps to put on the pipes first. Once you have those slid on, go ahead and adjust and then tighten everything up, level it out as best as you can. You'll notice here that I had a little moment where I wasn't adjusting something correctly and finally figured out what the problem was. Of course, you need to cold start and test everything out. Okay, after you've allowed ample time to admire the sound of your new exhaust system, you're going to want to make sure that you, if you can, and if it's safe to do so, check for exhaust leaks. So in my case, I'm perfectly comfortable to roll under the car and feel each individual pipe, especially since it's not super hot yet. It's still going to be hot, but warm to the touch, whatever. But get under there and feel. Can you feel air coming out of the exhaust at any of those connectors, joints, etc.? So get under there, feel it if you can, if you're comfortable with doing that. Also, pay attention to how much exhaust smoke is coming out of each tailpipe, and you'll see a lot of it right at first, and it'll kind of smell weird just because it's that new exhaust smell and look. But I'm going to include my short video of going through and tightening up the exhaust where I felt different leaks right now. And this way you can see I did have some leakage at the downpipes, and I went through and I just readjusted each of those clamps and collars, made sure everything was tightened. And then another important thing to note is that I did go through after I was done with the impact gun. I went through with like a ratchet and tightened by hand as well. Go through a couple of heat cycles over the next few days, made sure everything was tight after it had been heated up and then cooled back down again. I've done that several times now, but it's an ongoing process. You always want to double, triple check all your connections. Okay, after you've allowed ample time to admire the sound of your new exhaust system, you're going to want to make sure that you, if you can, and if it's safe to do so, check for exhaust leaks. So in my case, I'm perfectly comfortable to roll under the car and feel each individual pipe, especially since it's not super, super hot yet. It's still going to be hot, but warm to the touch, whatever. But get under there and feel. Can you feel air coming out of the exhaust at any of those connectors, joints, etc.? So get under there, feel it if you can, if you're comfortable with doing that. Also, pay attention to how much exhaust smoke is coming out of each tailpipe, and you'll see a lot of it right at first, and it'll kind of smell weird just because it's that new exhaust smell and look. But um, I'm going to include my short video of going through and tightening up the exhaust where I felt different leaks right now. And this way you can see I did have some leakage at the downpipes, and I went through and I just readjusted each of those clamps and collars, made sure everything was tightened. And then another important thing to note is that I did go through after I was done with the impact gun. I went through with like a ratchet and tightened by hand as well. Go through a couple of heat cycles over the next few days, made sure everything was tight after it had been heated up and then cooled back down again. I've done that several times now, but it's an ongoing process. You always want to double, triple check all your connections. I think that about wraps it up. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you get stuck at any point. Honestly, I don't think that's going to happen because this is incredibly straightforward. It is a very, very simple install. It's a little bit time consuming, maybe, but realistically, this is something that probably anybody can do with little to no experience at all. I mean, it's totally reasonable for someone to think that they can do this in their garage on a weekend afternoon.